We are in the VFD transmission assembly stage of the new Vanquish VS4-10 builder's kit. This transmission is not the VFD twin, so it does not have the selectable overdrive or the dig option. This one should go a lot smoother than the VFD twin. If you are wondering how that VFD twin transmission goes together, I'll put a link over here to the video so you can check that one out. And the next step is this round plate. And, well, one of these days I'll get it in the damn camera for everybody, and I'll quit taking it out of the frame. So this will set in there. It's got a little groove right there, and it gets 2 of the 12mm screws here on the inside. And I'm not set up, so let's get the 2.5mm. Okay, that is in, and now we are going to start assembly with some bearings. So these are the 5x11x4s, if I can keep it in the frame. Alright, and then we've got another one that goes down here. Pop that one in, and it looks like we've got a hole in this shaft for one of the pins, which is the 8mm pin goes on the top side. Okay, and that one gets a 23 tooth gear, which is going to go for a 11.3. Instruction manual, don't let me down this time. If anybody knows, last time I had to disassemble the transmission off camera because I had put it together wrong with the wrong gears. Hopefully everything will be fine, because this time they've actually labeled that's a 30 tooth and that one's a 32 tooth. And then the only difference in these, I'm assuming 23 tooth gears, is the length. One's shorter, one's smaller. This one's calling for the 11.3 and it matches up fine. So we'll set that gear there. And then set this off to the side without it tipping over and dropping the gear off. And then we've got this big boy gear. We've got the bottom shaft length, which is 37.5. Okay, which is the one with the 2 holes and extra space. Whatever you want to call it. Right, then we get a 10mm pin into the back side, and it will catch this big boy gear. Put this big boy gear in. Let's see. Just like that, the pin sits down into the gear, catches it, and then this goes into the lower part. Everything's running smooth, no issues here yet, or ever, maybe, we'll see. And then we get this back plate, which gets another bearing, the 5x11x4, and this plate gets bolted on this way. Like I said, one of these days I'll keep everything in the daggone frame. So that sits in there like that, and it gets two 12mm bolts, and they go where? Here on the top side of each. I'm going to go ahead and grease these inner gears with some waterproof grease. Just going to put a good dollop right there on either side because I don't want the grease going everywhere. And then I'll grease it from the top here before I put that plate over it. So now we'll go ahead and set this in. It's 2 or 3. So this guy right here goes on the bottom. And there. And then you get the 12mm screws here to hold this back plate on. Go ahead and get this screwed in. And then we should see some grease coming up through here. Yeah, there it goes. Now everything inside of there has some grease on it. I'm going to put just a hair more. Just a nice thin bead on top. That way it will pass through the housing. And I will just spin this through a few times. You can see down inside there that the teeth have grease on them, which is good. Alright, and then the next is we're going to take this VFD plate right here, and we're going to use it on top this time. The last kit I did, I used the Vanquish logo one, and it also comes with a gear shifter cover, which is cool, but I'll pass. Like I said, one of these days I'll keep the daggone thing in the frame. Okay, now it's good and covered. Give it some faster spins, get that grease all over everything in there. Make sure everything's good and coated. Then we are moving on to the next step, which is this. You've got these two different plates. You've got one that's a 30-tooth overdrive and one that is not. And let's see, the non-overdrive plate gets the bearings. It's very similar to the VFD twin transmission. I think towards the rear end of it is where it actually changes up. And we've got this bad boy sits there like this. Can't say it sits like this if you can't see it, so get that to sit down in there. Make sure the bearings are fully seated. Alright. And then we've got a 8mm pin. Oh shoot. I might have used the wrong pin in the wrong spot because I've already used both 8mm pins and I need one now. So bear with me, I'm going to pull this thing apart and find out where I put the wrong pin. Here we are. Where were we? Alright, so we've got this plate in and we need an 8mm pin, which I have now. And we need the long 23-tooth gear. Fits perfectly on the instructions. And we are going to place this pin in here. You're going to want to make sure that the shaft is pulled up all the way so you can slide that pin in. It's extra complicated when you got big fingers. And when you can't see what I'm telling you about. So I'm going to slide that pin in there. Make sure it is centered. And the long gear goes on top. Then we've got this gear that's got the little bit of shafts on either end of it. Goes into this one. I'm going to set this down so it doesn't fall apart. Then that leaves us with two shafts. You've got the longer shaft, which will get a pin and gets a, what is this, 32 tooth. So this one's the 32 tooth. Slides down, locks in. Good to go there. And that leaves us with this 30 tooth and the stubby shaft. So if you notice, there are two holes on here. One's closest to the edge and one's got a little bit more space. The one with a little bit more space sits towards the front. And you will get, this is actually where the drive shaft will hook to. So you got the last pin, slides in towards the back, and the 30 tooth gear comes all the way back. And then this bad boy slides into here, and you see the shaft, output shaft coming out for the front drive shaft. Those gears mesh smoothly. Right, that leaves us with this guy, which has the rear drive shaft, rear output shaft for the drive shaft. Everything runs smooth, no binding up, no bouncing around, no grinding like the last one I did. And then on top of that, you've got this 30 tooth overdrive bearing holder thing that gets all of these bearings. And then it will slide down into this back part of the transmission, which faces just like this. And this slides in. It should seat down in here if you get it just right. Let's try this without the bearings in it. Okay, so that slides down in, fits like a glove, it's nice and tight. Then we will slide these bearings in. One of these days I'm going to get a more sturdy table, so leave a comment below if you want to watch my woodworking skills on building a table, because I enjoy woodworking as well. Then you've got another bearing that comes here. And this should slide straight down over everything. Should slide in seamlessly. And it does. Everything spins perfectly. So now I'm going to take this back off. Put this guy back where he belongs. Here. Put these bearings back in that came out. And now we are going to grease everything. I might be going a little overkill, but this thing is going to see some water. Probably a lot of water. So now, just to keep the mess down, I'm going to slide this over very carefully. Get that bearing out of here. Slide it down. spin all these gears up, take a peek. Yep, everything's good and coated. Set that down, wipe off the excess. It'll smush out when I bolt it down. I put this bearing back in for the rear drive shaft. And we've got the long boy that goes here, which is a 3x30. And then we've got two of the 12 mils. One goes here on the bottom side, one goes here on the upper side. And we'll run all these down once I swap over to my 2.5. Where'd it go? It's in the hand tool. Alright, everything seems to be seated nicely. You can see no gaps all the way around it. Come on. One last little tighten on everything. And that looks to be just about everything. So yes, that is the assembly of the transmission. Not quite sure what all these extra parts and pieces are for because I didn't encounter them in the instructions. Well, yeah, I know what they're for. Step number 15, put it in the chassis. So, let's get her in the chassis. Spoiler alert, oh, I put the bumpers on. Pre-runner style bumpers. You'll never guess what's going in it. Leave a comment below if you can tell me what you think's going in it. And just as I suspected, this was going to be a pain in the butt with this battery tray in here. Of course you can't see it. Just as I suspected, I don't understand why they tell you to put the battery tray in it first before you put the transmission into the skid, because you can't get to this last bolt over here. Maybe. It's a possibility. We're going to try it anyways. So we've got this bad boy. We're going to come in through the strap. Oh yeah. So this is the screw. That was a pain, but if you get in here you can get right into it. Why did I drop that? Well, I guess I didn't seat the bearing all the way. Make sure that's seated. Don't want to keep dropping bearings. Alright, then we've got two more on this side of the transmission. Alright, so we got those on, but we forgot this guy. And you can't get it on unless the transmission's out of it. Okay, so now that we've got that unscrewed, we can rotate this backwards, slide the cover down, and ooh, look at that. The other screw never came out all the way. That's good. And we'll hand tighten these again. Nothing like doing something twice. Whoa, hello. Give it back. Nothing like doing something twice. But hey, that's what happens when you don't pay close enough attention. Alright, so we got these last two 16 mil screws we're going to get in here. Screw those down. And I already started this bottom one, so this holds the bottom of the cover plate to the skid, which you probably can't see very well. Alright guys, that is the Vanquish VFD transmission assembly and motor installation. and putting it into the chassis. So if you like this video, like, comment, subscribe. You know, give me a shout. Let me know if you guys want to see something different. I know I've said that in all the videos, but we appreciate y'all's feedback. Love to hear what's going through your heads. If you don't like me, leave me a comment. You know, we'll see how that goes. But yeah, so stay tuned. Coming up next in the build series will probably be the links and possibly the shocks. So stay tuned. Appreciate y'all.